And um, on that note, let's look at how the military budget impacts climate. And we know this. We've gone over this. This is, every few months or so, a new article comes out about the fact that the U.S. military consumes. Here you go. U.S. military consumes more hydrocarbons than most countries. This is from June 19th, 2019. Massive hidden impact on climate. So not only does the U.S. military use and emit all this carbon, their impact on the climate is supreme. The U.S. military's carbon footprint is enormous and must be confronted in order to have a substantial effect on battling global warming. Must be confronted, as in stopped, as in dismantled, as in, undeployed. The U.S. military's carbon footprint is enormous and must be confronted. Research by social scientists from Durham University and Lancaster University shows the U.S. military is one of the largest climate polluters in history, consuming more liquid fuels and emitting more CO2 than most countries. CO2e, carbon dioxide equivalent, ramping it up even more. The majority of greenhouse gas accounting routinely focuses on civilian energy use and fuel consumption, not on the U.S. military. That is by design, my friends. This new study, published in Transaction of the Institute of British Geographers, calculates part of the U.S. military's impact on climate change through critical analysis of its global logistical supply chains. The research provides an independent public assessment of the U.S. military's greenhouse gas emissions. It reports that if the U.S. military were a nation state, it would be the 47th largest emitter of GHG in the world, if only taking into account the emission from fuel usage. Report co-author Dr. Patrick Bigger of Lancaster University Environment Center said the U.S. military has long understood it is not immune from the potential consequences of climate change, recognizing it is a threat multiplier that can exacerbate other threats, nor has it ignored its own contribution to the problem. So, excellent point that the military, the Department of Defense, is one of the biggest leaders on understanding the impact of climate change, the reality of climate change. And it's so interesting that a lot of the rah-rah, types in our country think that climate change is a hoax, or they don't even understand what it is. Their president says that it's a hoax or it's not real, but the military and the Department of Defense will tell you all day long that it's a huge threat, and it's a reality. It's climate. The military's climate policy is fundamentally contradictory, confronting the effects of climate change while remaining the largest single institutional consumer of hydrocarbons in the world, a situation that is locked into for years to come because of its dependence on existing aircraft and warships for open-ended operations around the globe. And that seems to be the impetus for many of the wars that we now try to create, is because it's about energy. So our military needs all this energy to continue to function. So the way that we continue to function is to create wars where we can go steal more energy or take more energy or confiscate more energy in order to keep our military going. Sounds healthy. Despite the recent increase in attention, the U.S. military's dependence on fossil fuels is unlikely to change. The U.S. is continuing to pursue open-ended operations around the globe, with the life cycles of existing military aircraft and warships locking them into hydrocarbons for years to come. The research comes at a time when the U.S. military is preparing for climate change through both its global supply networks and its security infrastructure. The study brings transparency to one of the world's largest institutional consumers of hydrocarbons at a time when the issue is a hot-button topic on the U.S. presidential campaign trail. Leading Democratic candidates such as Senator Elizabeth Warren are asking critical questions of the role of the U.S. military and climate change and examining its plans for the future. Co-author Dr. Benjamin Niemark, Associate Director of the Pentland Center for Sustainability in Business at Lancaster, said this research provides ample evidence to support recent calls by activist networks to include the U.S. military and Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's Green New Deal and other international climate treaties, because they are exempt, by the way, if you didn't know that. The U.S. military is exempt from consideration in climate treaties and in the Green New Deal. Co-author Dr. Oliver, and that is bizarre to me because of reasons already stated over and over in this video. Co-author Dr. Oliver Belcher of Durham University's Department of Geography said, our research demonstrates that to account for the U.S. military as a major climate actor, you must understand the logistical supply chain that makes its acquisition and consumption of hydrocarbon-based fuels possible. How do we account for the most far-reaching sophisticated supply chains and the largest climate polluter in history? While incremental changes can amount to radical effects in the long run, there is no shortage of evidence that climate is at a tipping point and more is needed. The researchers' examination of the U.S. military carbon bootprint started with the U.S. Defense Logistics Agency, a powerful yet virtually unresearched sub-agency within the larger Defense Logistics Agency. It is the primary purchase point for hydrocarbon-based fuels for the U.S. military, and a powerful actor in the global oil market. With the fuels it delivers powering everything from routine base operations in the USA to forward operating bases in Afghanistan and Somalia and Yemen and Iran and Iraq and Syria and China and Philippines and all over the world. An important way to cool off the furnace of the climate emergency is to turn off vast sections of the military machine. Thank you, added Dr. Niemark. That was extremely logical, that sentence. I'll read it again. An important way to cool off the furnace of the climate emergency is to turn off vast sections of the military machine. It is the only way. Turning off is the important part to understand. Not greening up, not switching to renewable energy, turning off. This will have not only the immediate effect of reducing emissions in the here and now, but create a disincentive to developing new hydrocarbon infrastructure integral to the U.S. military operations. Other key findings of the report include, in 2017 alone, the U.S. military purchased about 269,230 barrels of oil a day, and emitted more than 25,000 kilotons of CO2 equivalent by burning those fuels. In 2017 alone, the Air Force purchased $4.9 billion worth of fuel and the Navy $2.8 billion, followed by the Army at $947 million and Marines at $36 million. If the U.S. military were a country, it would nestle between Peru and Portugal in the Global League table of fuel purchasing, when comparing 2014 World Bank country liquid fuel consumption with 2015 U.S. military liquid fuel consumption. For 2014, the scale of emissions is roughly equivalent to total, not just fuel, emissions for Romania, according to the DLAE data obtained by the researchers, which include GHG emissions from direct or stationary sources, indirect or mobile sources, and electricity use and other indirect, including upstream and downstream emissions. The Air Force is by far the largest emitter of GHG at more than 13,000 kilotons CO2 equivalent, almost double that of the U.S. Navy's 7,800 kilotons of CO2e. In addition to using the most polluting types of fuel, the Air Force and Navy are also the largest purchasers of fuel. Did you know that? I'm sure a lot of you did. So, yes, in review, military is extremely bad. Military and military might, extremely bad for the environment. Hey guys, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. You can also support the channel at the links below: PayPal, Square, and Patreon. Also, all of my live streams are available for listening on Patreon if you happen to miss them during the day. So you can sign up for my Patreon for as little as $1. If you want to go check out the live streams, they are all there. Thanks a lot.